was listening to one of the live albums, and I was going through a lot of video in prep for this, and what struck me is there's an urgency to your playing. It's not just that you're driving the tempo, but God, it seems like you're powering the arena sometimes. And I'm just wondering, I'm
I
wondering
like that.
how
I draw
much.
power from the arena.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because it looks like you're an alternative fuel source when
Yeah.
you're on stage, and I'm wondering how much of it is intentional, that feeling of urgency when you're buying the kit, and how much of it is I just can't help it.
I just can't help it. That is, I guess it's in my DNA. I've always played from my heart. I've always played with a lot of passion. It's what drives me, and I like to drive the bus. I feel that in all the bands that I've been in, I have the keys and I have the gas pedal, and everything kind of flows through there. Yeah, I mean it's a team effort,
Right.
obviously, and with Loverboy, we're in like our 40th year, and some of the guys I've known even longer. Paul and I go back to like 75 musically, and so that's just the way that I drive it. Yeah, urgency. I love to. I take a lot of pride in the energy needs to be up. I don't want to see things slip over the years or decades. I've gone to see bands that I grew up with, and seen how things have just kind of petered off, slowed down, tempos are slow. I take a lot of pride in staying on top of that, and going back to the records and looking for the original tempos and keeping things like that. Some stuff you do need to slow down just for groove. You change. The pocket always seems to have a different kind of vibe depending on the venue, the size of the venue, whatnot too. But we keep everything pretty constant. Pretty much every night.
So if that's the constant, then how have you changed as a drummer since the beginning of Loverboy?
I would say I'm smarter as a drummer. I think it was just pure energy back in the day, just excitement and youth. But I think now I really feel you're going for the groove, you're going for feel. We like to have a good time on stage. All of us just like to enjoy that camaraderie you have and the magic you have with your audience. And after 40 years, there's a lot of faithful fans that come out, and they're holding up Canadian flags, or they're holding up old album covers and stuff like that, or those kinds of things. And it's I don't know, it's kind of magical every night. I love that. Feeding off them feeding off us. But we still play in 60 to 70 shows a year, pretty much, year in, year out. And I try and keep it fresh. That's kind of like that. I feel like that's my duty. That's my job. Like I liken myself to like a goalie on a hockey team or a catcher on a baseball team. Like I'm here, and everything grows around me and feeds, and I feed them, and they feed off me, the guys in the band.
Yeah.
And so if I'm having a good day, then hopefully we're all having a good day.
And then, speaking of that intense energy level, I don't know that I've ever seen another drummer climb his drum set during a solo. How did that originate? Where did that come from?
Interesting. Yeah. If I may tell a little story, when we started opening in 81, when we came to America on our first record, we opened in 1980 in Canada. Our first album was released in 80 in Canada. And we toured them, I don't know, we had warmed up Cheap Trick and stuff for some different months, played clubs and theaters and whatnot. But in 81, when the second album came out in the States, we did 3 months with Kansas, 3 months with ZZ Top, and about 4 months with Journey. And they were on Escape, which was massive.
Yeah.
And we all got to know each other really well, great guys in the band. And Steve Smith was a great inspiration to me as
Drummer
a player.
for Journey, in case
Journey,
you don't know.
yeah. The original drummer
Yeah.
with Journey.
And now
well,
back
one
with
of the
them.
many original drummers. But
And now back with them. And
so I did this little break in our little warm-up set, and we were really only working on our first album. So we were playing as much as we could from the first record, Turn Me Loose and Kid Is Hot for sure,
Yeah.
and then some other few tunes and whatnot, some of the stuff from the first record. We might have even been playing Working for the Weekend. I'm not positive. We had written it, but we hadn't recorded it yet.
Yeah.
So very first show, I had always done this thing where I would do this little break and I would stand up and bash on the cymbals and play this little thing and hit around the toms and then jump down and count the song in. And it was like third in the set, and I think it was like Lady of the 80s or something from the first record.
Okay.
And about 3 shows into the tour, I guess Steve Perry did not like this because Steve stood on his drums at some point. And so this went around to management and record company and everybody. And I guess the long and short of it was, if he doesn't stop standing on his drums, they're off the tour. It was like,
Oh my
what?
God.
How is that right? How is that relative? Like, that's gonna like blow you guys off the stage, and you're worried that Don't Stop Believing is just gonna bomb, you know? Like, give me a break, you know? Like, so it went around the horn, and I talked to Steve about it, and we both laughed and went, well, you know, and I know I'm throwing Steve Perry under the bus here, but I'm sorry. It came that, you know, I was supposed to cease and desist or something like that. So I did not. Steve said, just keep doing your thing. Management all worked it out. Everything's cool. Let's not worry about this little stuff. You guys just do what you do. But I'm not really sure exactly when the first time started with that, as climbing up on the drums, but it's kind of one of those things I just like to do, and up I go, and there's that passion and excitement again, I guess.
Yeah. And you know, because it's not just, it doesn't strike me as a stunt in that sense, in that, you know, you're still playing in rhythm, you're still playing these interesting patterns even while you're climbing up there.
Yeah, and it's a little, it's like a little duet with Doug, the keyboard player. He does this little cool thing, and it's kind of a segue to go into Turn Me Loose.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that you do in the set, and it happens, and the magic happens, and it's like a spontaneous thing. And then, well, that was really cool, and that works really well, and it gives the other guys time to tune and doing whatever they're doing, and you know, have a refreshment or something. And then the drum solo's finished, and I jump up and I finish up on the cymbals, and then Doug and I do that little thing, and then I count him in for Turn Me Loose, give him the stick click, and then he holds the pad, and I just drop to my stool and start the hi-hats for Turn Me Loose. So it's kind of one of those things that sticks, and stuck, and so it's kind of part of the set now. So we do it, and some nights, when it's third show in a row, I'll tell my tech, can I have a little step up to get to the stool? I stand 1 foot on the stool and 1 foot on the 16th floor tom. And it's also a great tribute to my Zildjian cymbals that I love, and I'm a lifer, and I get to play them just individually away from the rest of the kit, just separately. So it's a nice little feature that I kind of have fun doing.
Okay.
You know? Hey, Puss, how you doing?
Along those lines, what makes for a good drum solo, in your opinion?
Oh, man. You know, my dad, God bless him, took me to see Buddy Rich when I was 13 at a supper club in Vancouver, and it changed my life as a player and as a young drummer, looking for inspiration and whatnot. And the reason I could get in there because it was a supper club, so there was food being served.
Okay.
And it was like one of his early sets, and it was a very memorable evening for me. I went with my dad, and Buddy was with his big band, and it was in Vancouver, and I was this kid, you know, in high school. And had my first set of drums, and I listened to, you know, Buddy and, you know, my early inspirations. I'm thinking it was, early 60s, early mid 60s. And he had some guys that were, I think, had been stayed over from the lunch crowd that were still in there, and
Okay.
they were loaded, and they were right up by the stage. And there was two guys talking, and I think they kind of missed the whole switch to the big band thing, and they were just going at it like this. And Buddy was doing his thing, and the band was playing, and they were just, these two guys were like not even catching what was happening, and just talking loud. And
Oh my
Buddy
God.
was doing his solo in, oh my God, what was that great big piece? I forgot the name of that. Suite. Anyway, so he did this press roll down to really, really quiet, and then you could hear like everybody in the room is all there to see Buddy and the band. And he stopped, just right, this press roll took it right down and stopped. And then he went over and he walked to the edge of the stage and he stood over the top of these two guys. And I was just this kid going, Dad, what's going to happen now?
Yeah, right.
This is like, and everybody is just, you could hear a pin drop in the whole room, except these two guys. It's just, and they were completely oblivious. And Buddy just, and he goes, hey, you two, you know that everybody in this room is here to see me play and hear the band. And he just ranted on these two guys, and the air got pretty blue.
Okay.
I won't repeat those words on camera, but
It's okay. You wouldn't be the first.
so
person
they
to say
kind of
that.
like shrunk down and crawled down into their seats, and he made his point, and everybody was like, oh my God, where's this going to go? And he went back and he climbed up on the drum throne and he started from that press roll.
Oh wow.
And then he started doing, and then the left hand, and then he was going
Yeah.
around and he counts the band in 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, bop, 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 bop. And then the band's back in and off. Channel 1 Suite, I think, was the one he did his big solo in. I just
Okay.
remembered that. I think. Anyway.
Love for Sale. one of
So
those.
that night of passion and electricity and just how he drove the band, really, I just wanted that electricity. I wanted to be a drummer like that drove the band, commanded the stage, commanded the drum kit,
Yeah.
took control of the whole room, everything. It infused into me. Just as a young boy and as a drummer, and I went home and I put all the records on and just tried not to swear like Buddy, but just it was very inspirational. And
And are you still? Do you feel trying to go for that, capture that?
every night, yeah, every night. When I take the stage, I'm blessed to still be drumming at this age and this time, that people still love our music, want to come out, and it's even stronger now than has been for a long time. It's crazy, the resurgence in the 80s, and there's so many great bands that are out touring and playing, and people are very lucky, to be seeing all that music, and we're just a small part of it, and feel really blessed.
And then you mentioned, you've incorporated the keyboard player into part of the solo.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of really cool videos of you and Spider doing stuff as part of a solo. How do you guys write something like that?
That just kind of comes, and that's another story that was inspired when I saw Jimi Hendrix in '67. The opening band was the Vanilla Fudge, and Carmine Appice, or Appice, however you pronounce that, was the drummer in Vanilla Fudge, the original band. And I saw them at the Coliseum in Vancouver when I was a kid then in early mid-'60s. And Tim Bogart and Carmine did a solo like that. I don't know, it wasn't a conscious thing that I said to Spider back into the Street Heart days. We have to do this thing like Vanilla Fudge did. It's just, the stuff just kind of happens. And we've been doing this a long time, and we don't really write it or channel it out or plan it or plot it. It just kind of comes, and it's kind of like follow the leader. With Loverboy, we take a break out of Hot Girls in Love, and I do my little break first, and then I count Spider in, kind of like Buddy bringing the band back in, that kind of thing. All these influences kind of, they stick with you, through the years and decades. Bring Spider in, and then we have what we know works, and we kind of stick to that roadmap. But some nights, things happen, and you just kind of go. And he may lead something, or I'll lead something, and I'll do a different pattern, and he'll follow along. And we always kind of follow the roadmap, but it's open to just whatever happens. And sometimes there's time constraints too as well.
Yeah.
If you're in a warm-up set, or if there's time to do a break or not. Some nights we play that song without the drum and bass solo, but that's another magical thing that happens that just you try not to talk about, and he'll go, that thing we did last night, and he'll go, I don't want to talk about it. Don't bring it up. Like I go, just like don't jinx it. Yeah, let's not jinx anything. I don't want to be thinking about it, because when we just go, we just kind of go. It's a really nice natural thing that Spider and I do. We get a lot of enjoyment out of it. There's a lot of energy happening, and it's another kind of bridge for to go from one tune into another. Everybody gets, I think that's what's happened with Loverboy, through 40 years of playing, that we've come to this level of maturity that we want everybody to have a feature. We want everybody to have, show the musicianship. It is a band of musicians, and we're proud of that. And we play everything live, where we were never a band that did, tracks and things like that. We did stuff in the studio when we were producing. We always tried to make our music live sound as like the records, but I think we sound better than the records. I think we sound better now than maybe we did back in the 80s. It just, I don't know, we've had a lot of practice. No, you just, I don't know, it's more mature and it's smoother. Some of the songs are slower. Some songs are the same tempo. I play Working for the Weekend the same as it was recorded, 146 BPMs. Jump is the same. Loving Every Minute of it is the same. The ballads are the same. When It's Over is a little slower and funkier, but that's kind of a groove tune that's developed, over years and decades, that it just becomes this other organic thing, and the audience is part of that, and we're comfortable with it.
Although there's extra coloring I've noticed that you add in live performances. And
Myself, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's some great live recordings out there that I encourage people to listen to. And, particularly, let's say I was listening to one where it was a live recording of Hot Girls in Love, and there's a point where the song just kind of, it gets pulled back, and it's a little mellow, but you are suddenly doing this like Stuart Copeland thing.
Wow, another great influence. You got great ears. You really do.
On the hi-hat, where it's because I've read you talk a lot about dynamics and the importance of dynamics. So you're not overpowering Mike at that point, but it's not just this dull. You're not like just a metronome at that point. There's this great stuff going on with the hi-hat in that lower part, and I love that.
Yeah, when you record the records back in the day, and we had a great team with Bruce Fairbairn producing and Bob Rock engineering, and we were at Little Mountain Sound that everybody wanted to come into after, Motley Crue and Bon Jovi and Aerosmith, and, that Little Mountain Sound, from the 80s. It was a great studio. You're recording for records, and you're recording for cleanliness and space. But as, the songs develop on stage over the years, I try and be choosy what I do, like smart, but where I'm going to add color. Some songs I play right to the T, still the way it was cut and rehearsed and written and recorded back in the day. Some things do develop. Stuart Copeland is a great influence on me. Loved the Police, loved his playing, his sort of fusion from jazz to rock and pop. And my playing back in the early years was more simplistic, but as I've grown and listened and played at different things, I started branching more out and getting, more intricate on the hi-hats or the bell, those kinds of things. And so I try and do that, but without interfering with the essence of the song. That people have come to see and hear. I went and saw Sting one time in Vancouver, and
do you remember who was?
It was Vinny, Vinny Colaiuta, but I got disappointed. And Vinny, sorry brother, love you, brilliant player, and all you people that but I got disappointed because on the Police songs, they strayed away, and that's their That's their thing. They can do that, and they sped a lot of stuff up, and everything was like super, super fast, and things got really, really busy. And I was actually thought about leaving the show. I mean, just go buy a T-shirt and head out, because for me, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't have expected it to be the Police, because there's different players on stage, and Sting was doing a solo thing, and that's fine, you know. I get that, but personally, they didn't honor those particular tracks the way I would honor them. So anyway, not comparing myself at all.
Right.
But so that was an instance where that stuck in my mind, and I think that I got to be really careful how I play certain things, because there are people out there, they've come, and chances are they were just listening to the same old record from 82 or 83 or 81 or 85, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And they're listening to it, and then they're coming into the concert, and then if you mess with it and take it all the way like right or all the way left or jazz it or funk it, you know, you're going to disappoint people.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that.
No, but and it's an amazing tightrope that you walk in that sense. And as someone who's a really awful drummer, but can hear those kind of things. And another thing that I found in going through a lot of the live performances, you do a lot with the ride cymbal on some of those faster moving tunes.
Yeah. I dance a lot more. It's kind of the jazz thing.
But it's fun, and it adds color, but it's not taking away from whatever
the essence of it.
Right.
The meat and potatoes, the bass drum and the snare drum.
Yeah.
I try and keep the color up top a little bit, but stay with the essence of the song, but there is a little more color happening. Those things, when you're recording a record, you have to be smart. They don't generally transfer to the recording, especially in those days when we pretty much cut everything live on the floor, everybody. All the bed tracks were all done with everybody, you know, Scotty and Mike and Doug singing live on the floor, and then we'd go back and do guitar overdubs and vocal overdubs. But we tried to keep as much on the records live from that track, from that original first one. And we'd do 3 or 4 takes, and then we'd go in and listen to them, and we'd take a break and come back, and that one's the one. And then, Bob was amazing because he could cut toms, and it was like, you know, back in the day we cut on, you know, 2-inch tape, you know, reel to reels and analog. And I'd walk in from dinner break, and there'd be tape, and I'm going, what is all that? Oh, that's all your solos, or that's all your drum fills going into the bridge, and that's the one going into the second chorus. And, and it's like, so what's in the song? Well, we took that one, and he just was amazing with the razor, and he would run it over the heads, and then he'd cut and cut, take that out, take one from another take, plunk it in there, tape them, run it, and go, yeah, we like that fill, you know. And Bruce Fairbairn it was awesome. He would come out, it was like the manager walking out to the pitcher's mound, and he would come out and he'd have a little talk, and he'd go, okay, so Matty, like, I know you're holding back. Just freaking go for it. Just go for it on this take.
Wow.
Like, you got a lot of drums in here, so just hit them all, you know? And that was my big Ludwig kit bag. And it was like 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, 16, 18. The kid is hot tonight, you know, just whatever it is, like, just go for it, man.
Right.
And we're going to take that one, and we're going to take the one that's like really kind of calm and less, and we're going to play them all and see which one like feels the best. And there'd be Bob, and he'd be cutting tom solos out. We go like, we love the whole track here, but we really want this exciting drum fill into the bridge or into the last chorus. So Bob would cut the tape, and he'd grab that tom fill out, and he'd splice it in, and we'd record over that. And 5 days later, you couldn't tell it came from a different take. You know, it was like the beauty of that. It was a great team of people, but I try and stay true to that. I try, you know, like in Kid, you know, play because you see people air drumming, or you see them, you know, whatever, guitar playing, like Paul plays his solos pretty much. Like in When It's Over, he plays that solo. It's iconic. He plays it the same every night and has been for 40 years. I try and hit those same fills, you know, the ones that stand out. Those are little hooks, right? And you want to give the people that, because that's what they deserve. They've been supporting us all this time, and you know, we're happy with that, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
After this time, you know, it's cool.
Now-
It's nice to get crazy with stuff, but generally it usually ends up just falling through the ice, you know.
Yeah.
So
Now, one thing I found when I was doing research that surprised me is that Mike Reno, when he started as a musician, started as a drummer,
yeah, you did.
which I did not know. And I'm curious, how has that affected the way you guys work together?
You know, in the very beginning, there were times when Mike would sit down on the kit when we were just writing songs and they were in their infant stage. And he would sit down, and if he was trying to explain something about a groove or a pattern or a space in something, I'd just go, Reem, like, here, sit down. Just show me exactly what you were thinking. And he'd sit down and
Yeah.
he'd just go, and he's going like, what about like two hands over here or something, you know, like,
Yeah.
and I don't know, I can't remember specifically which tracks it was, but I know Mike still likes to you know, dabble in the drums. He doesn't come up too often. I think I have too many drums for him. He gets overwhelmed. But yeah, everybody's a drummer, right? So, but that, you know, in the early in the writing days, it was awesome to be able to actually have him, because he was one of the key writers with Paul. So I just say, just demonstrate what you're actually talking about. Like, what groove are we talking about here? Or tempo or something. And it would just be kind of loosey-goosey, and he'd sit down and he'd go, and I go, okay, I can take that and then make it Matt Frenette. And then, because Paul and I had been in a band together, 2 bands actually before Loverboy,
Oh.
so him and I bonded, you know, as him bringing the majority of the songs to the bands. We would just get that guitar and drum thing, that tightness, that he'd find a riff, and I would just start drumming, and we hit it off in the you know, when we first met.
Yeah.
And he liked how I interpreted his songs. He wouldn't have to say too much or whatever. And in the early days, you know, he would make demos with like little simple drum machine stuff, you know, and it'd be and it would play for the whole song, and he'd go through put down a demo, and it'd be on a cassette.
Yeah.
And then I would go, all right, that's the groove.
Yeah.
Get over in the bell and
Yeah.
add the color and add the fills, but keep the essence of that, of how he wrote that riff.
Okay.
You know, and whatever that was the basis, whatever song that developed into.
Yeah.
So I tried to honor that, you know, and as a drummer, I think that's a real key thing as a drummer in a band for young drummers and even experienced drummers, that, you know, listen to the song and they don't get in the way of the singer. That is a key. And I talk about that in my clinics and things that I've done. Just, there's always going to be a time for you to show off.
Yeah.
Not in the songs. Just keep it cool, you know. Keep it where you're embellishing the lyrics and the guitar solos and the things. And, you know, when we recorded those tracks, that's why you were picking up, there's a little more going on
In the
live
yeah.
than there were on the tracks. Just trying to keep it straight up, you know, so that all that stuff stands out in the mix.
Yeah, yeah. And then, you know, you talk about how well you guys work as a cohesive group, and your longevity is damn impressive in a field where not many bands make it that long. Not only have you made it long, but as the original lineup.
Yeah.
And you, I read a quote that you had where you said, "To become successful is to communicate with one another."
True.
And it's not something I've come across it often. I'm wondering if you can expand on what you meant by that.
You know, yeah. I mean, you gotta talk, and it's like everybody. We've hung in and respected each other as partners, as friends, and I believe that anybody in our band would do anything for each guy if anybody called, outside of the band, like just as a person, you know. So we're friends as well, and we just there's a bond there that's really tight. And when we shut down in '89, After our first 10 years, we formed the band in '79. We had a different bass player in the beginning, but we hadn't recorded our first record yet, and Scott hadn't come in, and we were just playing clubs and stuff. And then we went for 10 years nonstop, 5 studio records and a couple greatest hits.
Yeah.
And then we shut down about '89, and guys just, we were tired. Guys wanted to work on some solo projects, that kind of thing. And Mike had a solo record. I played on his whole solo record. Paul made 1 or 2 solo records. I played on his records. Doug was doing some demo work. I did some recording for him. I went out and freelanced with some other Canadian artists, Tom Cochran, Colin James, Kim Mitchell, Sue Medley. Did some recordings for Bob Rock and Bruce Fairbairn, and out in Toronto. Really enjoyed it. Did some little jazz jams around Vancouver, some blues things.
Yeah.
Got in a few little blues bands and learned to play some different stuff. But all along, we never lost touch of one another. It wasn't like a bitter breakup or anything like that.
Yeah.
We all stayed in touch and communication. Like I said, I did recordings with the other guys, and they were working on different stuff. Paul and I took a tour out. I think we went out and warmed up Bad Company for a few months on one of his solo records, and so we kept that bond and respect musically for one another, and but I was like a hired guy, like I was a sideman,
right.
and you put a different hat on, and that's what I enjoyed doing as well. When we took our break from '89 to about '94, and working with Tom and Colin and Kim Mitchell and groups like that.
It also shows a distinct lack of ego, because I've run across some musicians who would not do that, who would not especially become a sideman for someone they were on parody with in a band. And so, it's just nice to hear that you guys had that relationship where it's like, all right, you're going to do something different on your own. I'm happy to support you in that.
Yeah. I would say, because everybody respected each guy in the band as a human being, and as a musician and as a good friend, we just there wasn't any animosity. And I know there's people always thinking, oh, how could that not be in a band? But it's actually true. Loved and respected each other, and I think you just have to talk about stuff like you do in business or a partnership. You just have to be able to communicate, what you're thinking or what you're feeling. And sometimes you lose a vote. If it goes around a vote and you're voting on something, and whatever it is, as a partnership, you got to be able to take it and go, all right, I didn't win that one.
Yeah.
Okay, it's going to go another way on this issue, whatever it is. And stuff happens in business,
Yeah.
And so you just take it, you don't hold a grudge, you move on, and don't take it to the stage. Try not to, and keep your egos in check. But, when we took that break, I think it was good for everybody to just do different things for themselves, grow as individuals, and then when we came back, we...
a little bit more re-energized.
We're energized, but you have the platform of the band and the songs and the legacy, but you have this new, everybody's kind of been doing different things, and you bring in that, that new life, the new blood into the band, and it feeds into the songs, because as soon as you start to play the old songs again, you're back in that time capsule. And then when we started up, you're a classic rock band. Now we're not a recording band. We're not on video. We're not doing any of that. We're out doing classic tours with Heart or Foreigner or whatever, wherever you're or headlining, and we started out doing festivals in '94.
Right.
And Alice Cooper and different things like that. And people were like waiting. Promoters were going, where is Loverboy? Why aren't they back on tour right now? We took that break. And... so it was exciting to come back. It really was. And Scotty, was in the beginning of that. And then unfortunately, we lost Scott in 2000. So that was pretty tragic. And we just, had to regroup again, after that. And, we took some time off.
Yeah.
But, we honor him every night we play, you know, and
No, that's
Yeah.
good. And then finally, and kind of along similar lines, you also had this really interesting a statement that I read where you said there's always been a tragic misunderstanding between art and business. The result is that many great musicians have ended up penniless. I'd like to see artists develop a more mature understanding of business. And I'm curious, again, as a successful band, as a band that's gone the distance, you know, and thus can be considered a successful business, what's the key to finding that balance between art and business?
wow, and that's probably not my quote. That could
I-
be Paul.
oh.
That might be one of Paul's quotes.
I'm-
I would think, you know, we were very fortunate because we had great management and honest management, people that we could trust when we started out. So when the band started out and records started selling and money started coming our way via royalties and touring revenue, you had to trust somebody. So, because it was new for everybody. So you just, you put some trust in them and you pray that you don't get burned, as a lot of bands had been and you knew about and heard about, read about, but you just, and you try and be smart about what you're doing. I'm going to tip my hat to Paul Dean on this one, that he took the ball when he formed this group and picked, you know, the players and picked management that and accounting, that we were making the right moves finally. That, you know, people in smaller instances had been hurt, you know, in earlier bands. Guys had been burned by management or bad accounting or bad investing or whatever it was. So you try and learn those lessons. As advice to new bands or musicians, do your homework. I would say, and if your gut tells you, like Gibbs on NCIS, if your gut tells you, obviously I'm watching that on Netflix right now, aren't I? Yeah, that just came into my brain. Sorry. If your gut tells you you don't feel right about something like that, I would say go with it. Go with your hunch.
Okay.
You know, if you don't feel right about something, ask questions and get second and third opinions, and get accounting that management hasn't picked.
Okay.
If I was to give one major advice,
Yeah.
find accounting, you know, for taxes and revenue, watching where money may come if you're blessed and fortunate in this business. A lot of bands are not, and are very talented and just keep going at it and not finding financial success. And not saying that that's the end all be all, but it certainly helps keeping your dream alive.
Yeah.
You know, whatever it is, whatever music it is, whatever genre you're in, do your homework. As much time as you put into your songwriting and practicing with your band guys, pick your guys, feel good about everybody, whether they're guys or gals in your band, and put the same time into management and accounting.
Okay.
I would say, you know, it's kind of like rock and roll 101. Yeah, first and foremost, try and get those things in writing, you know, in the beginning, because you don't know in the beginning if something's going to take off. You hope that it does, and you put your time in, and you have your little gem, your little baby you're working in a basement or a garage or where it was, and this is your little cottage industry, this is your little thing, and who knows, like the guy from Amazon, right?
Yeah.
You know, he started in a garage, like a lot of unbelievable businesses, and your music is your art. It's your thing, right?
Yeah.
Take that, protect it, and get, you know, more opinions about what you're doing about it, and do it early, because if you do it late, sometimes the train's already left the station, and you're scrambling to get protection and advice, you know,
Yeah.
for money that's coming at you. If you just won, you know, Battle of the Bands somewhere, and all of a sudden you're getting digital downloads and 500,000 views, whatever it is, you
Right.
know, you're trying to catch up. Chickens are out of the coop. So
Yeah.
it's good to try and lock that stuff down in the beginning, and that's what we did. And Paul was the major force behind that. You know, he protected us all in royalties and publishing before there was even a dime won. He set up the partnership and set up equity within the band, and that's a real key thing. There was equity in the band where two people that are writing aren't just making the lion's share of everything, and everybody else is renting an apartment in an alley somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, we after Success, we set it up so that there was equity in the group in the event that there would be success.
Yeah. No, that's great.
Yeah.
That takes care of my stuff. Is there anything we didn't discuss that you want to talk about?
Yeah. Loverboyband.com is our website, and you can see our concert dates there. And we try and play 50 to 60 shows a year, depending on how we're feeling and what comes down the pipe. And we're happy to play all sorts of gigs. We were just really honored to just play the Ryman Theater for the second time. We played it last year. A very blessed venue, historic. The building's more famous than the bands that come to the stage.
Yeah.
And it's just very magical. I grew up in country and western music. That's what my father and my mom, my dad, as a hobby, played guitar and harmonica and sang to country and western, and Hank Thompson and Hank Snow and Kitty Wells and Patsy Cline and Johnny Cash and Merle Haggard and all the greats, all the original country greats.
Yeah.
And I played bongos. I started when I was 5 and started that way, playing to all those records. And to go into the Ryman and where the Grand Ole Opry and the historic, all those incredible entertainers, singer-songwriters, grace that stage. When you walk into the building, you feel it. I mean, I do. And you know that you got to bring it that night. And 2 weeks ago, we had, the good fortune to play the Ryman for a second time. And the dressing room is the Johnny Cash dressing room, and I'm taking pictures of Johnny Cash, you know, wishing my parents were still alive, you know, and I could send them to him, and rare photos of him and June Carter on stage, that stage, and just. When you get on your drum kit right from sound check in the afternoon, they're doing tours while you're doing sound check, because it's an old church. It really is a blessed building. The pews are still on the floor, and there's a balcony, and we got to play it with the Fee Waybill and the Tubes 2 Thursdays ago, and it was packed. And the audience comes; they're ready for a good time. They know what's expected of them. We know what's expected of us. And you come and you bring it, and it's magical. And things happen during a show that you play that same set year in and year out, but magic happens in venues like that, and it's just still sticking with me, as you can tell. And those are the things you hang your hat on when you do 60 or 70 shows a year. You really feel blessed about what we're doing still, and that we're still. I know I am thankful to be still playing our songs for people that want to come and listen to them, especially in venues like that.